Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Skylar the writer, and this is where I discuss my life as a writer. Imagine that. I want to start by telling you that I am in a much better place than I was in the last video that you saw. If you watch that video, you will know that I got rejected from a job that I really, really wanted. And I didn't just get rejected, I got rejected hard. They didn't even want to interview me. Like, they were just like, yeah, no thanks. We don't want you. But I am feeling better since the last time we spoke. The reality is, and I've said this before, rejection is a part of being a writer. You're going to hear no far more than you hear yes, and you just have to develop a thick skin and be really resilient. So I take my licks, I take my licks, and I didn't get that job. That's disappointing. There are other jobs out there that I've applied for. I did actually get to work today pitching a couple different pieces that I'm interested in writing. One is a personal essay about my cancer journey, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. But yeah, I really think I have something to say about, what I've just gone through, which is a really traumatic, life changing event. And there is an angle that sort of fits with one of my beats. So, a beat, for those of you who don't know, is journalism jargon for what we cover. And so I have a few different beats that I cover, but this fits nicely with one of them. The other piece is actually about Big Brother, which is a British reality TV show currently airing on ITV. I'm not going to tell you how I'm watching it from America, but I am. And it's actually, like, I haven't watched Big Brother in 10 years. So actually, the last time I watched Big Brother, Andrew Tate was a housemate, and he got thrown out in like the first week. Yeah, that Andrew Tate. And it was so obvious to me back then. This was before Andrew Tate was sort of famous in the manosphere or whatever. He was just an asshole on reality TV. But he was so toxic, even back then. That was 2015, 2016, I think. I couldn't watch. Like, I sort of boycotted Big Brother for a real long time because I thought if you're letting someone like Andrew Tate, who is clearly a violent misogynist, in a house full of women, like, he was real menacing to one woman in particular, I remember. I just really couldn't be on board with that. But that was on Channel 5. This is Big Brother since moved to ITV. I decided to give it a go again, and I'm so glad I did because it's been really riveting television. These housemates they skew very young, Gen Z, but they're not afraid to have political conversations, and I think that's really interesting because this level of politics, I don't remember ever being a part of Big Brother before. And I was a huge Big Brother UK fan from about 2001 to, like I said, probably about 2015, 2016. So I don't remember it ever being this overtly political. So I'm interested in writing about that, hoping that I will get a commission on those tomorrow. Although one editor, I got an out of office. She's not available until next week, so I'll wait. That was on the cancer one. That's fine. That's an evergreen piece. There's no rush on that one, except that your boy needs money because I'm dead broke. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm hopeful that these pieces will come together the way I want them to. That said, like I said, I just said, I'm broke. I need a job. And so a job came across my desk. I haven't applied for it yet, but I'm going to. It is a communications job, though. It's not a writing job. Essentially, I would be like a press secretary for a group, and that's all I'm going to say. Pays well. I'm definitely qualified. Right up my alley in a lot of ways. I think I would enjoy it. It would move me to a place that I really would like to live again. So that's nice because for a number of reasons, I'm sort of ready to uproot and leave the town that I'm living in now. And, it's nothing super dramatic. I just feel like the time is right to make a move. I like where I'm at, okay, but I don't see myself staying here forever. So this job would, possibly get me back to a place that I would really like to be again. And so that's nice. But the con is that it's not a writing job. It's not a writing job. It's in a field that I have experience in, a sort of field of progressive work activism, but it's maybe not one of my core issues that I care about, but it is an issue I care about. So I guess that's not really a con. I think I'm just trying to talk myself out of it because what I really want is a writing job. But at this point, I have got to take what I can get. And I've had this conversation with myself, and I'd love for you all to weigh in. If you're not making your living as a writer, are you still a writer? Am I still a writer if my primary income is something else entirely? I've settled on the fact that yes, it's kind of a silly question to even ask because as long as I am writing, whether it is my primary source of income or not, I'm a writer. And I will always have written. I will always have my career. No one can take that away from me. The things I've already accomplished, they're done. They're set in stone. No one can take that from me. So I will always have been a writer. But even if I go into a different side of media, or I go into the press, or go into communications or whatever, corporate communications, it's not something I would do. I think I'd stick in nonprofits. But still, the point is, if I go into this, I'm not less of a writer. Just because I'm not writing full time. So that's good. I hope I get this job. I think I'd really enjoy it. I think I'd be good at it. But I'll keep you all posted. And I've got, a lot of other jobs that I've applied for that I'm waiting to hear back from. So we'll see. All right. Speaking of writing, this is a channel about writing. So let's go ahead and talk about the writing breakthrough I had over the weekend. As some of you know, I am writing a memoir. And I think the first thing I want to ask is, what do y'all think of when you think of memoirs? What is a memoir to you? To me, if I had to define a memoir as opposed to, say, an autobiography, I would say an autobiography is a relatively straightforward and dry recitation of the facts of your life. I was born here. My parents are these people. I went to school here. This is my first job, blah, 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 blah. I haven't read a whole lot of autobiographies. The one that comes to mind is the autobiography of Ben Franklin, and I'll be honest with you, I've read excerpts of it. I studied history as an undergraduate, and I think I read some of his autobiography and maybe a U.S. history survey. I haven't read a lot of autobiography, and I don't particularly find them interesting. I actually like biography as a genre, but I don't necessarily like autobiographies. Autobiographies tend to be much less objective. Memoir is, by definition, a subjective form of storytelling. It's not factual, necessarily. It should be grounded in fact. It's nonfiction, so it's absolutely grounded in fact. But it's more about your perception of events. And I think that acknowledging that people perceive events differently is really important for memoir. There's a quote from Dawson's Creek. Joey Potter says in the episode Joey Potter and Capeside Redemption. And she says, "I can't promise this is how it happened, but this is how it felt." And to me, that has always summed up memoir. I can't promise this is exactly how it happened, but this is how it felt. And I love that quote. It's such a profound quote, profound in its simplicity. Sometimes the way things make us feel are as important as the way that things actually happened. So to me, memoir is an exploration of the human condition. It's an exploration of the psychology and the sociology behind the choices that we have made. It is much more thematic than an autobiography, as opposed to focusing on one's whole life. One is focusing on aspects of a life, themes of a life, certain events, and really diving deeper than you could in an autobiography. Deeper, as in you're being more detailed about what happened because you're dwelling on one event or a certain event or a chain of events more than you would in a sort of book that's about your entire life, but also deeper as in a meditation on the human experience. An autobiography tells you about a life, a memoir tells you what it felt like to live that life. And so that's what I'm working on. Why am I writing a memoir? Well, to be completely honest, because a publisher approached me about it. I had sort of always known that I would write a memoir just because of the kind of writing that I do as an opinion columnist and essayist. It's very confessional. It's always drawing on my own personal life and my own experiences to sort of make broader points. That's the kind of writer that I am. So a memoir does make sense. A few years ago, this was 2023. Yeah, it was 2023. A friend of mine set up a meeting between me and a publisher at a conference, and we sat down and talked. And I really was hoping that I would be able to pitch a novel to her, but she was much more interested in a memoir. So yeah, I think that because of that, first of all, I take any opportunity that comes my way. If somebody wants a memoir out of me, I'll try and write one. But second of all, I do think I have a story to tell. The biggest issue for me in writing this memoir is, well, first of all, it's been time. So when she approached me, I was in graduate school. I'm still technically working on my thesis ish, not as much as I should be, but I was still in graduate school. So that was my sort of primary focus, was getting through the remainder of my classes. I toyed with writing it. I tried writing it one way. I had a friend read it. She took great offense at how I portrayed her, which this was not a close friend. It was somebody who I had only just met a few months before. And honestly, she featured in like 3 sentences, and she blew up about it in a way that I thought was completely disproportionate to what I had written. And she was very offended, and I still don't necessarily understand why, because I didn't say anything rude or mean about her. I expressed how her behavior made me feel in one instance, and I think that really upset her because she didn't like what I had to say. But, that's how you made me feel in that moment. But it made me sort of skittish because I don't want to burn bridges with people that are still in my life. Like, she was somebody who I hadn't known for very long, and honestly, I wasn't particularly upset that she was, like, I didn't care. Like, I let her read it as a courtesy, to be completely honest. It was really another friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, that I wanted his opinion on it, because he featured a lot more heavily in it, and he was fine with it. He said it's honest. Even where it didn't make him look good, he's like, you're telling the truth. And so I really appreciated that. But after that, I sort of struggled to continue writing because I didn't want to upset anyone. But another issue that I've had is figuring out which thread to follow. Is this a memoir about a gay man? Is this a memoir about an Appalachian? Is this a memoir about a working class man? Is this a memoir about writing? And what I've decided is that it's all of those, because I am all of those. And those are the 4 core identities that I have, particularly being gay, Appalachian, working class, and a writer. Appalachian is probably the least of those, because I think a lot of my cultural upbringing is probably more commonly just working class American. But I think it's a lot of what I went through as a child, probably, and the cultural background that I come from, would probably, most of it, not all of it, but most of it would be the same if I grew up in Appalachia, or if I grew up in, the Great Plains or Bayou country, or what. There are similarities, I think, in working class life. But certainly being Appalachian is part of my story, and it's a part of my story that I'm proud of and want to tell. Trying to figure out which of those threads to follow and how to weave them all into one narrative has been a challenge, and that's something I'm still working on. And I'd love to hear from writers, especially any writers who have written a memoir. You know, how's that? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you decide what to focus on? How did you weave the narrative threads together? How did you make sure you weren't compartmentalizing your personality? I'm very curious about this. I love hearing about writers and the craft and what their process is. But another issue I had is that I didn't know when to start the memoir. And by that I mean, like I said, an autobiography is a sort of dry recitation. I was born 6:43 a.m., St. Elizabeth Medical Center, Dayton, Ohio. Well, none of that's germane to the story that I'm telling. I mean, it's factually true. I mean, that's when I was born. But who cares? And a lot of my childhood, like, I've realized, like, first of all, my childhood was really unhappy, but I don't necessarily think that was the fault of any one person. I think it was the fault of society and the circumstances that I was in. No one abused me. No one was cruel to me necessarily. At least not my family. Like, my parents were not abusive. But I was still a very unhappy child. But how much of that actually matters to who I am today, I don't know. To be honest, I don't have a lot of memories from childhood. And I think one is because it was a very sort of traumatic childhood, being a sort of sensitive gay boy in the 90s in a very working class community. This is not somewhere where being gay or deviating from norms of masculinity was acceptable. And so I got bullied a lot as a kid. Not talking about as a teenager. That's a whole separate story. But also, I think because we didn't do anything, we were working class, you know? So I didn't get to do family fun with my parents. They were busy working. They sacrificed a lot in order to provide what little they could provide. And so we didn't have the money, or they didn't have the energy to go ice skating or apple picking or, you know, to the dairy farm or hiking in the gorge or to a hockey game or any of the things that, like, I would hear other relatives doing with their families and their parents. We didn't do that. And so because of that, a lot of my life was spent just watching TV, if I'm being honest. And so I don't have the same childhood memories that a lot of people have. So I'm starting the memoir. I know I had a breakthrough on Saturday night, and I did a voice memo in bed. I was laying in bed, and it suddenly hit me. And so I woke up, and I did about a 10 or 15 minute monologue that outlined the first chapter. And all I'll say is that I finally figured out when to start the book, and it's July 2nd, 2001. Why that day? Why that exact day? You have to read the book to find out. But it is nice to know where the story begins. So the next thing in the writing process for the memoir, at least, is because of course I'm still working on my fantasy series. And that's a different video. I'm not going to get into that right now. But the memoir is, I think I'm just going to write the first chapter. I'm going to transcribe that voice memo that I took and break it into an actual outline, and then hopefully tomorrow I'm going to punch it out. I'm feeling really inspired. I take Sunday off in general, so I didn't work on that. And then yesterday was doctor's appointments, which sort of so I'd like to get started on writing tomorrow, because today's been about pitching and researching for those articles that I've pitched. And I like to do the heavy lifting before I pitch, like finding all my statistics and stuff, just so I have it handy and I can turn around copy really quickly. I don't know if every writer does that. Frankly, a lot of the writers I've worked with haven't, but they also haven't been writing sort of the kind of opinion journalism that I do. They've been writing much more essays, and so they have maybe a little bit more creative freedom than I often have. But I do want to give you a quick fall update. Speaking of cancer and doctor's appointments and all of that. So, for those of you who know me or have watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year. Went through treatment, chemo and radiation, came out the other side, and have been healing, and I'm just now getting back to work. Well, over the weekend, So, for those of you who don't know, I couldn't really eat. Like, the radiation was on my throat because I had tonsil cancer. Well, that affected my ability to swallow. It was very painful. Even liquids were impossible. So, I was having to do a feeding tube for a long time. And over the weekend, it sprung a leak. So, you have to flush these babies every day, even if you don't use them to feed. And I was flushing in the kitchen just with water, and it shot across the room and hit my dog. Scared the shit out of him. Startled me too, if I'm being honest. So I sprung a leak. But that's okay because a couple weeks ago I was suddenly able to produce saliva again to the point where I can actually eat. Still can't swallow without the assistance of liquid, but this is a massive step in the right direction. So it looks like the Monday I had a doctor's appointment, and that was not an all-day thing, but it always turns out to be an all-day thing because I feel like I wait there forever. But the good news is he's referred me to get the feeding tube out. So I have an appointment on Thursday. I don't know if they're going to take it out on Thursday or if they are going to just sort of assess the situation and then schedule it. But that's very exciting. So I've spent a lot of the last couple days cooking. This morning I got up and I made a pumpkin spice cake, which I'm very excited about because I love fall. I love pumpkin spice. I've got my jack-o'-lantern t-shirt on now. If you can see, I'm so excited. But the cake was pretty good. I would like to be able to taste it better, so the radiation burnt my taste buds off, and so I can't taste as well as a normal person. But it tasted good, kind of bland, but I know it's not because I put extra spice in it, like pumpkin spice, and I put mayonnaise in it to make it moist, and I use mayonnaise instead of oil or butter because if you think about it, mayonnaise is just emulsified oil and eggs. So if you put it in a cake, it makes it extra moist. It's like adding an extra egg along with the oil for the fat, that the cake recipe will require. So that's a secret. That's a trick for you. I'm a really good cook, y'all. I'm really good. I enjoy it because I use real ingredients. Like, I'm not cooking healthy shit. Like, I mean, you can see this big old double chin. This didn't come from nowhere. Your boy likes to eat. For supper tonight, I'm going to show you. I'm not really that hungry right now. That's the other thing, is because I was on a feeding tube and I can't eat as much as I used to. I've actually lost a lot of weight on this cancer journey. Like, as fat as I am now, I used to be much fatter, and you can find old videos of me and see. So I would like to keep losing weight, but I am sort of enjoying cooking. But I made this. This is sweet and sour sauerkraut with some Polish sausage, some kielbasa, and these are pink lady apples that I chopped up and threw in there with some Dijon mustard and some brown sugar. I would use a sweeter apple. I just happen to have pink ladies on hand. That's sort of my go-to apple. I like the tartness of it. But a sweeter apple would be better for this recipe. But it's really good. It's a great fall dish. I'm all about making fall foods right now. I'm all about doing fall things. And I've got my Halloween decorations up. I got my fall decorations up even before that. I've had my fall decorations up since Labor Day. But my Halloween decorations are up, and so I'm very, very excited. And I can eat. I can eat again. So that's good news. You can hear my dog. Okay. Yeah. So, Jack, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. Sorry, this is getting cut a little short, but I don't know how to edit. So get to writing because it's not gonna write itself. And shush you.